So, today we're talking about Smile, which has been a massive hit at the box office. Some of you may have seen it already in the cinema. It's a horror film written and directed by Parker Finn in his feature directorial debut, and it's based on his short, which premiered at South by Southwest back in 2020. Look who's here. Chris, so good to see you back.
Hi, Phil.
So the last time I spoke to you, we reviewed Barbarian, another big horror movie this year, big hit.
Absolutely. We're loving the horror films right now, and I've got to say, quite enjoying this one too.
Yes, I was very surprised because I have to say, at the beginning of this, I was going to mention that when I saw the trailer, I thought, okay, I'm going to go into this thinking this isn't going to be that great. It looks a bit, cliche-ridden. There was lots of horror tropes and it just felt like it had been done before. Although I think it does certainly feel like it's inspired by the horror films that have been and gone, but I think it's quite original.
You're right, it does reference a few things, but I'm not a massive jumper, I've got to say, and I watched this with my husband, who's a colossal jumper, and throughout the whole film, the dogs just kept waking up every 30 seconds because the pair of us were jumping away, and we were both at it. So, it works. Jumpometer, we need a jumpometer graphic here.
Yeah.
Definitely jumping a lot in this film.
It was definitely up there for me as well. My other half, he didn't jump at all, and I did quite a few times. There was one really jumpy moment, and if you've seen the short, I don't know if you've seen the short that this is based on, it's about 11 minutes. There's one really jumpy moment at the end, which just it got me, and I'm such a hardened horror fan as well. I still jump, but a lot of things don't terrify me. I'm not saying this terrified me, but it definitely unnerved me, this film.
Do you know what I really liked about this film is that it's got a really nice pace about it. There's a real unfolding to the narrative for me. It doesn't just lay it all on the table at the beginning, and it doesn't make you wonder what on earth's going on until the end. It actually just has this really nice kind of build to it, and it really took me on a bit of a journey, to be honest. I think that there's a bit of a kind of thriller aspect to it. There's a kind of mystery to it. Yeah. There's kind of I don't want to give away too much about the film, but there's this really lovely kind of thing going through it where I feel real empathy with the lead. And I was just like, oh, she was thinking, am I mad? And I was thinking, well, am I mad? Are we all mad? Who's right? Who's wrong? And I just found that really, really good all the way through. It really maintained that for me for the duration of the film. Really, am I mad or am I not?
Gemma and I said exactly the same thing. But it stars Sosie Bacon, who is Kevin Bacon's daughter. She plays the lead role. She plays Rose Cotter, who's a psychological therapist, who witnesses a suicide. A woman comes into her office and she's treating her, and she kind of does that really annoying thing that they do in horror films, where she looked away from her patient, and her patient was obviously freaking out. She was telling a story about, she sees these people with smiles that look like they're wearing masks, and it's not in her head, but obviously a lot of people think that she's just a bit kind of mentally unstable, and there's that whole kind of stigma attached to this film as well, which I thought was quite clever, because that's what a lot of people would say. But she does that thing where she turns around to the phone and she turns her back on her, and Jeremy said, why have you turned your back on her? She's going to do something stupid.
What I love about it is that what happens to her is really interesting, because she starts off being, her hair's back, no spoilers on the hairstyles, but her hair's back, she's very controlled, she's very in charge. And she goes on this journey where it just goes the other way. She goes from very controlled, very calm, to very uncontrolled, very panicked. She just moves through these stages, and she just unravels. And as a viewer, I was doing that with her. I was on that journey. I was like, yeah, I'm fine, and then it's like, oh, I'm less fine, and then 10 minutes later, I'm really not fine, and then it just gets worse. And I just really went with her on that. I loved that.
So she's the psychologist, so you would expect her to be able to deal with mental anguish and, all the subjects that come with that, and all the illnesses that come with that. And she's obviously going through troubles herself. So she's wondering why she has this, vision, and she's seeing all the spooky stuff, and a lot of stuff does happen. We can't obviously talk about some of it because it would spoil it, but it does unravel in a really good way. And I think the the final act I thought was brilliant. I mean, not wanting to get through this review quickly and talk about that just yet, but I thought it all was so stylized, and there's some really good cinematography as well, the way the camera just pans sidewards, almost Hitchcockian.
Absolutely. You know, I'm a real cinematography fan, and actually you don't often see it in films of this kind of budget or in this kind of genre, but this was a beautifully made film. One of those films where the art direction's really well considered, where, you know, the shots are really well set up, and it's just a real feast to look at. And I know that's a real cliche, but in this kind of genre, that's not that common, actually. There's a lot of enjoyment to be had in this film just because it looks good and it's been thought about and it's been really well considered. I've got to say, the other side to that coin is that after we finished it, my other half said, yeah, it was a bit too colour coordinated, wasn't it? And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, when the mood's like this, the colours are like this, and when the mood's like that. And I was like, okay, I didn't even get that, which is something I would normally get. But like, it really reminded me of 1 Hour Photo in terms of some of the aesthetic. A real kind of blanket colours, and really, but for me, they really enhance the kind of what you're feeling and what you're seeing. And I really enjoyed that about it.
That's really interesting you said about the colour coordination, because there's one deleted scene on the DVD which is coming out on Boxing Day and Blu-ray 4K, which is all to do with her, Rose, with her fiance at a work party. It's one of his workmates' parties, and she's not feeling the people. They're all a bit spiky, and she has a bit of a panic attack. So she goes into the bathroom to do her breathing exercises, and something happens in the bathroom, and she's freaking out in there. But it's interesting because the director was talking about the wall and her dress, because she was wearing a black dress, and they hunted everywhere to find this bathroom with black tiles, just so it would coordinate with what she was wearing. So your other half has picked that up, you know, quite accurately, I thought.
Yeah, but look, I thought it was a really good-looking film, you know, and not every film is, you know, and it really was. But like, the other thing that really struck me, actually, I really liked Susie's performance. Actually, I think she's a great actor, and actually really built empathy in me. You know, really, like, I properly went on the journey with her. You know, and you know, she was entirely believable and entirely credible, and just gave a really great performance. And I think, you know, the other actors were really good in it. I actually really like her ex, who's the cop who helps to kind of investigate kind of some of the mysterious stuff that's going on.
Gallner, he was in Scream as well. He's got the most amazing long eyelashes. He's got really pretty eyes, like kind of doll eyes.
No, he performed really well. Loads of other people do, but they're very much, for me, they very much felt like supporting actors. And actually, I thought that Susie was just held this film. I just think she just, you know, she's a great actor, and she just, if it hadn't been for her performance, I think the whole film would have really not had the level of credibility that it did for me. You know, I just thought she was a brilliant performance, really great.
And also this kind of film where there is a lot of anguish and people are tormented, you kind of, I mean, sometimes actors do overact a little bit, because obviously it's quite a full-on performance, and she didn't in this. I don't think. I think she knew where the limit was.
Absolutely, there was a subtlety in her performance, actually, and that's what
absolutely.
I mean. The journey for me was really enhanced by that, because you, at the beginning, you with her, you feel very contained and very controlled and calm, and you know what's real and what's not, and you know, you feel like she does, that you're in control, and it just slips away bit by bit. There's no switch. There's no kind of immediate kind of cliff that you fall off. It just happens to her, and it happens to us as the viewers. And, you know, it definitely happened to me. And that subtlety is the hallmark of a great performance. You know, I think she did really well.
Absolutely. And one of the special features on the Blu-ray actually does talk about how much hard work it was for her as an actor to go through all those emotions, because you can just imagine that if you're playing a character, you have to feel what they're feeling, so it must be quite exhausting, and she really does give it her all, I think, in that performance. But there's something else that Jeremy did talk about, actually, because he started off not enjoying the film because it does go into the mental anguish area, which I think as a viewer, like you said, if you're feeling that, it can be quite upsetting, because you don't want people to experience that, and they are going through all that. So I think it got out of that quite well. It didn't get too dark, I don't think. Although it's obviously a horror film and quite a psychological thriller, I think there was a lot of popcorn, what I call popcorn horror elements, which kept it quite light and frothy in a way, even though it was quite jumpy too.
Yeah, and actually that makes me, I totally get that, and I totally agree with you. But it I really enjoyed it because actually it does work on several levels, this film as well. I think it's got some really interesting kind of structural and narrative things going on. I mean, it's about kind of cycles of behavior. It's about things repeating. It's about stuff that kind of, it's an unbreakable kind of cycle of stuff that's happening. And it's kind of happening on quite a deep level as well, as you say, but kind of relieved by these kind of more popcorny moments as well. So it really operates. It's actually quite a sophisticated film, I think, in those terms. It's happening on several levels, and I think that's going to give it great appeal. Actually, I imagine that people who like kind of slashers and kind of violence and blood and stuff are going to quite enjoy the bits like that happen. I think that people who are looking for something deeper and more thriller kind of based are going to find the tension really interesting. And I think it all just hangs on this very strong narrative and very strong performances.
And the upside down shots as well they looked quite good. I mean, I've seen that done in other horror films. It reminded me of a couple of other horror films. I was trying to think what they were. I know The Babadook, it's been compared to that, and also Saint Maud. There are kind of elements of that. I don't think it was as dark as Saint Maud, but I just found that really interesting. And the sound design too. I mean, the music, again, going back to the features on here, there's a 10-minute feature showing and I don't have his name, but it shows the composer making the music, and it shows him using a bow with lots of kind of wooden instruments and scratchy noises and kind of almost like a double bass moaning sound. It's like really hard to kind of pinpoint what that sound actually is, but it just sounds really, I don't know, it just makes you feel anxious, that noise. And yeah, the soundtrack, I think the sound design I thought was amazing.
I think you're right. I think it's a whole bunch of things about the production of this film really all work towards making you go on this anxious journey with the actors, and everything works together. The colours, what the shots look like, the music, the sound. It's all really underlining that really unnerving stuff. There's actually one of the scenes that really got to me is that there's a piece in a filling station that's shot on CCTV. And you just get this really kind of voyeuristic feeling watching it because, it's clearly, we're watching a piece of CCTV. We're not watching real activity. And so you feel a little bit removed. And then what happens in that scene is really grisly. It's really gross. And actually, there's a kind of horror in realizing that you feel a bit disconnected from it. But, that just breeds more anxiety. You just kind of think, I shouldn't be feeling like that. That's really unnerving.
I was really surprised by it. Like I said at the beginning, after seeing the trailer, which I think it was more the smiling element, because obviously she's seeing a lot of people smiling at her, and that triggers the fear. The smiling element I did think was a bit cheesy in the trailer, but that's obviously because I hadn't seen the film. So I went into it thinking this is obviously copying a lot of other horrors that do a similar thing with smiley faces. And
yes, I haven't seen the trailer, so I've always, there is something when some people smile, there's something really unbelievable about it. There's something kind of disingenuous about some people's smiles. There's something quite sinister about some people's smiles. It happens to us all the time in real life. I mean, weird smiles happen in the real world. And actually, for me, I really enjoyed that about the film. I don't know about you, but every time a smile started to appear on someone's face slowly, I was like, oh no, bad stuff's going to start happening now. The smile's happening again. And for me, that really worked. And the whole thing that you were just talking about a minute ago about the kind of the shot turning upside down, for me, lots of this film is about that kind of reversal and sort of turning upside down of things, and a smile actually being really sinister. And I actually really love that kind of opposition that the film has a lot of in it. But the smile element for me was really powerful. It's a bit like seeing scary clowns and stuff. It's like, this is meant to be a thing of joy and beauty, but we all know that that isn't always the case. And the smile was just the same for me. Every time a smile happened, horrible.
Another talking point we had during the film was how horrendous the people around her were. In Rose's life, she had a fiance that really wasn't very understanding when she was going through trauma, and we had her sister who was just unbearable. Her sister, she went to a birthday party. Was it her son? It was her son's birthday party, wasn't it? And bad stuff happens at the party, which part of that I found horrific. Part of that I found really funny. I mean, there's a scene where someone falls through the coffee table, which just had me in fits. Shouldn't have done, but it did. But yeah, there are some really horrible people in her life.
Very shallow and very facile, some of those people, absolutely. And, she obviously is this person whose job it is to really get deeper and understand how people feel. And yet she's surrounded by, her support network, her family, her partner, are people that only seem to exist on the surface of anything, and there's never any depth to them. And you can just see that kind of really undermines her. She really kind of, part of her kind of journey from control to uncontrol, part of that collapse is because she doesn't have the support system. Those people just don't get it. They haven't got it in them to be able to support her.
And it's really interesting. The director has been quoted as saying he wanted the movie to exist on its own, in its own right. So a lot of people obviously are asking about sequels because it's made so much money. But I don't think he really wants to take it any further. I mean, obviously the ending, won't talk about the ending, but I think it was wrapped up well. And it kind of surprised me, the ending, actually. It was quite full on and quite horrific.
Yeah, it was definitely both of those things, absolutely. Yeah. What I liked about it, actually, is that it needed a climax. We'd been on this fairly not subtly, but, this unfolding journey. And I was looking forward to the end, actually, not because I wanted the film to end, but because I wanted to see how all this just came to an end. It needed a big dramatic finish, and yeah, we got a big dramatic finish. I think that's all I can really say about the finish.
Yeah, but it's good. Like I say, the DVD and Blu-ray is out on the 26th of December. Some really good special features. There's commentary from the writer-director. There's the original short, which I mentioned earlier, which is 11 minutes long, which obviously this film is based on. There's deleted scenes. There's a 10-minute Inside the Score feature on how the music's made, and also a 30-minute behind-the-scenes feature, which is really interesting. I've only seen a bit of that, though. I've seen about 10 minutes of that. But yeah, well worth picking up, I think, that DVD or Blu-ray. We're going to go for a score. You go first, Chris. How much are you going to rate this?
What am I scoring out of?
Out of 100.
That's pretty granular. Okay. Out of 100, I'm going to be definitely like 80 territory. I mean,
bang on, the same as me.
There we are. I mean, 80 is a minimum, and we're in the 80s for sure. I think. Yeah, it's 80 material. Some of the horror in it for me isn't about blood and guts. Some of it was about some of the terrifying figures that she comes across, especially towards the end. There are some really scary entities arriving in the film that are scary. It's not all about, being slashed and bleeding to death and stuff. There's some scary stuff that happens. Yeah,
you're right, because it deals with trauma, grief and guilt, so it's that psychological element which I think is more terrifying than what you see.
Yeah, well, for me, again, layers. It's happening on all of those levels, all at the same time. If you're there for the deep traumatic stuff, you're going to get it. If you're there for the blood spilling, you're going to get that too. It's all there, and it's all very often happening at the same time. It's got some complexity to it, and I think that absolutely. I will watch it again for that reason. I think I'll see more when I see it again. I'll see different things. I like films like that where you come back to them and there's just other things going on that you didn't even see before. I've got a suspicion it's one of those films, absolutely.
Yeah, so we've both given it a rating of 80%, which confirms it is a certified Boys on Film banger. Pop corks. Talking of popping corks, happy Christmas to you, Chris. Good to see you. What are you up to over Christmas? Are you working? No, hopefully not.
I'm working a little bit, but I'll be around the house with my husband and the dogs, eating too much, drinking too much, and having just generally Christmas. We are just having Christmas.
I am all for that. Watching horror films, that's what we're doing. Black Christmas, we watch it every year. The original, not the remakes.
Definitely, there'll be a lot of film watching going on. We just got some new subscription services in place, so we're going to be not leaving the house for several days. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, hopefully I will see you in the new year and we'll have another amazing horror movie to get our teeth into. Or maybe not just horror, maybe just other stuff.
Yeah, maybe we should get into musicals next. Maybe we should start doing musicals.
Tits and tea. Good to see you, and thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you've enjoyed this and give us a like. Go on, be kind. It's Christmas. Be generous.